JBS Dev, we do all these things. Unfortunately, you guys did not get the ad-free version of the presentation today, so you can listen to the vendor talks. So there's our vendor pitch slide. Let's get to the content. All right, Copilot. It summarizes, spells and summarizes, once again spelling and summarizes. So this is kind of the problem that we have so far, right? People are saying you have to do AI, otherwise the company is going to explode. You have to keep up, and your exposure is Copilot. You got a bunch of licenses from your Microsoft rep at $30 a pop a month. You're like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this stuff? It's just personal productivity. It's just writing emails faster. To Microsoft's credit, it's got more stuff in it now. You can look in your SharePoint, and you can ask it questions and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's all focused on personal productivity. How do we make knowledge workers do knowledge work faster? And the reality is that these tools now can do a lot more than that. And that's really where we get into Agentic AI. But what is Agentic AI? If I was a SaaS salesperson, which I'm not, I would tell you it's the reason why you need to spend $10,000 more a month buying our licenses, because we have these fake human being AI robots, and they're really cool, and they can do all these powerful and capable things. So the reality is, we know what LLMs are, right? We go to ChatGPT, we ask it to write stuff for us, essays, Tinder messages, whatever. It does a really good job of that. Some developers, like me or others, said, I wonder if instead of writing a term paper or Tinder message, it could write an HTTP call, kind of an API call that you would make between servers. Maybe it could write one of those for me. Sure enough, it can. And maybe I can actually play that API call. I can make it and give that result back to the LLM and have it do something else afterwards. Come to find out that works really, really well. LLMs can write API calls just as well as they can write content. So if you put a loop in, let an LLM make an API call, give it the results, let it do it again, give it the results, that is Agentic AI. That is these robots that you hear about, where I have 20 agents on my team, where we've implemented 150 agents. Okay, sure, whatever. I mean, what you've done is prompted an LLM with a few API calls with different prompts in a few different situations. It's still the same LLM, it's still API calls, but the thing is, it's really powerful. It can do some really cool stuff, and it's really easy to implement. You don't have to pay your SaaS vendor thousands and thousands of dollars to get these capabilities unlocked, because under the hood, all it is just generating API calls. So we're going to go into some practical examples and talk more about how it actually would work for you without having to do that. All right, so here's an example. It's a company we work with. They ship nasty chemicals, oil, all that. Nowhere in the Middle East, thank God, but here in the US. And they have to deal with stuff like one of the ports, fire suppression systems broke. They can't have the shipment there because they wouldn't have enough on hand to put out the fire, so you need to reroute it somewhere. Or that particular chemical is too nasty, you need to route it around because it's too full, whatever, you get the idea. So there's these series of rules that all have to be checked, and then these shipments have to be changed if certain things happen. So what we did for INTD was basically just put all those rules into a prompt, and then we have a job that runs every morning, look at all the shipments, feed it into the LLM, look at all the rules, feed it into the LLM, and then it will spit out all the shipments that need to be corrected. And then it knows what the options are to present to the user. So this is a nice fancy looking screenshot. They just get an email and say, do A, do B, do C. So you can use it for really cool automation like that. Another example, large car retailer that we work with. Part of the process of buying cars, you need driver's license, payoff slip, proof of insurance, all that kind of stuff. And there's a huge rule-based expert system that they used to use to make sure all that stuff was done. One of the problems with it is you had to do it all in order, couldn't do insurance before driver's license, etc. And it was a pain in the ass to work with. It would take them, I think, 6 months to train a retail associate, and for somebody making in that $23 to $27 an hour range when they would leave, that's really painful to invest 6 months in somebody before they can become productive, and then they're leaving, kind of with the turnover that you would see from people in that pay range. So that can be pretty brutal. So what this tool does, follows all those rules, asks you, what to upload and when to upload it, and then lets you kind of complete that car purchase, just going back and forth with that agent. So that looks really cool, but all that is a webhook from Teams. When somebody types a Teams message, we take it, we prompt the LLM with it and say, here's what the Teams message was, and here's what they've uploaded to date, what else do they need left? And the LLM says, here's what else they need. We take that and we post it back to a message in Teams. Not rocket science, not magic, not $10,000 a month, just simple webhook integrations with Teams. As an aside, this is kind of a design philosophy in general when you're working with AI that you should incorporate. It's hard for users to have to go to yet another portal and log in to do something just because it's a separate AI stack, right? Like, oh, we have our chatbot now, but to access our chatbot, here's this domain and this URL over here. We set up a separate chatbot with separate data over here. Here's your separate login, blah, blah, blah. What you should be doing is take and integrate them into your existing chat platform, whether it be Teams or Slack or whatever, because it's really easy to do. So you don't need to proliferate the mechanism through which you interact with the AI. You can rely on what you already have. All right. Another example here that I think is pretty cool. The methods that I described in terms of how you implement this stuff, right? HTTP call, do something with some data, prompt the LLM, spit back out a result. There are tools that are really, really good at doing that type of work, that repeat data moving work, like a Fivetran or an SSIS or a Databricks or a Glue. You can use those to run your AI workloads without having to pay third-party vendors. Because all you're doing is in Fivetran, for instance, you're dragging a component over, you're saying HTTP call. You make that HTTP call to the LLM, returns the results, you can store it in a database, you can put it in a dashboard, all that kind of stuff. So just food for thought before we get into this actual use cases. You don't necessarily have to write a bunch of new software. You can build all of this stuff on your existing stacks, on your existing tools. Who in the room has a BI job that runs somewhere with the enterprise right now? Most of you? Okay, it's just one more job. And then boom, all of a sudden you've got AI doing something somewhere. It doesn't have to be difficult. Right. In this particular example, you can actually have the LLM prompt and look at data in the data warehouse and then give you the answers and interpret and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. All right. So why didn't your project cut it? Because that's kind of the last barrier, right? Okay, Joe, you've given us all these reasons why it's so easy and you made it sound so simple. And well, why didn't this stuff work? One of them is basically, what is an LLM? It's not an algorithm that always spits out the same result. By its very nature, it's non-deterministic. So what the hell does that mean? There's a non-zero probability that every time you call an LLM, you're going to get a different result. So us in IT, we're in the business of deploying things and testing them and make sure they work. So if you have a project that has 800 tests and they all need to pass every time before you push something into production and say success, and you're using an LLM, either in the software itself or in the test, there's a non-zero chance that it's going to fail. Right? So you have to account for what an LLM actually is when you're building it. There's nothing else in the last 30 years that I can think of that we on the IT side have interacted with that we go, it's normal and expected that it will give different results every time we do the same thing. Right? When we call code, if we get the same input, we get the same output. Most of the time. So this is unusual, you have to account for that. The next thing we see a lot is kind of just like chasing the buzz of AI. You got a CEO, he says, we need AI tomorrow, I want a chatbot that does this. So you should ask that question of, okay, just pretend for a minute in your head, we did it, we succeeded, it's built. Did it actually do anything useful? Did you make a better decision on pricing? Did you grow revenue? Did you avoid some kind of risk? And a lot of times the answer is no. It just looks really freaking cool. Okay, well what did that gain you? So you can get lulled into cool meaning useful with AI a lot. Because it does a lot of cool stuff, it doesn't mean it's useful. All right, and then the final thing is, I know I'm beating up on the SaaS guys today, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of SaaS companies out there, and they're on a 2 or 3 year plan, right? They want to build some stuff, grow some revenue, and then sell. And if they have AI in their revenue when they go to sell, they're going to be worth this much more to the buyer. They get some AI shit in there. Let's increase the multiple just to account for that. So what does that mean everybody's trying to do to you? Have you heard of our new AI plugin? Have you heard of our new AI plugin? These LLMs are a commodity. They're a commodity. You can buy Gemini API calls, you can buy OpenAI, you can buy Claude. It's fractions of a penny per API call. Why do you need to pay a vendor, thousands of dollars a month when they're reselling API tokens or credits that are costing them pennies? It's nonsense. So you have to figure out how to integrate these in a way where you say, this is our LLM, we use Claude. If you want to do an AI workload with us, you have to use our Claude instance. And we've got our Claude wired up to our vector store with our data. Stop trying to take our data, put it in your system, and sell it back to us because you have the ability to run a commodity. Anyone can do it. All right. Why our projects work. Our marketing team would kick my butt if I didn't do some sales pitching this year. They work because we're great at it, we do a ton of it. We don't like nonsense, we get it done. All right, let's get away from that. All right, so common misconceptions about AI. Another reason why some of these projects fail. Some people just don't understand the fundamental nature of how they work. And a lot of examples I hear, you go to these conferences, you must have clean data. If you don't have clean data, why even have AI? It's just not true at all. These models are huge, huge. They've been trained on very, very large swaths of data. Your data doesn't have to be clean. It can understand a misspelling or an anomaly very, very well. Compared to more traditional approaches like rules-based systems or machine learning, LLMs are incredibly resilient to bad data. As a matter of fact, they allow you to clean data much faster than you could bank. So you shouldn't be afraid of using AI just because you have bad data. Everyone, the barrier of how good your data has to be with LLMs is much lower than any other product we've used. All right. You need to train your own model, or models train, or this idea that they learn. To train a model, you spend billions of dollars in data centers, you collect huge amounts of data, and you let a training algorithm run for months. And then you test that result, and you tune it again, you test that result, you tune it again. There's only a handful of companies in the world where that level of investment makes sense. So nobody actually trains models. What you do is change the prompt. So you can change the prompt with end-shot learning, you can change the prompt with RAG. Nobody is actually training their own models, and neither should you. So you should have a fundamental understanding of what the difference is. These models have what I would call long-term memory. You never train that. That's just you're using GPT 4.5 or 4.6, or you're using Claude Sonnet or whatever. What you're doing is training a prompt, so to speak. Now, where that will bite you, changing the prompt is not fundamentally going to dramatically improve how smart the model is. It's just going to customize it. So a lot of projects will get 95% of the result, 95% of the benefit that they were looking for in the first month, and then spend 2 more years trying to say, we'll just train the model to go from 95 to 99. It's never going to happen. So be happy with 95% because it's not worth doing what OpenAI and Google and Anthropic are doing in terms of the money they're spending to actually train it. It's not worth it to keep going. The result you get in the first month or 2 is probably as good as it's going to get. All right. Models do not permanently retain data. So there are security folks out there, and again, I know I'm beating up on people today, who tell you, you put your credit card into GPT and it is now out of the world and the model has memorized it. And no, that's not how it works. For the free versions of all these, they will take your prompts and they will feed them back into the model, and over the course of several months, they will retrain it on your data. But these models do not learn in real time. They do not permanently retain data other than logging. So if you're afraid of putting data in a model, I would say, well, why would you email that data? Or why would you put it on a file store? Why would you put it in a cloud provider? It's no different. You're trusting them not to retain it. But the model itself inherently does not learn as you prompt it. This is a common misconception. All right. It's easy to integrate with. The pace of growth has slowed quite a bit. And then again, they are non-deterministic. You are always going to get a different result if you prompt it enough times with the same prompt. So you got to take all those things into account. All right. Thank you for your time. I'm at negative 12 seconds. So if you have questions, you guys make it brief.
Theo, this is going to be quick. You're going to have to take
So
them back.
quickly on your misconception about AI, you mentioned that you don't need the perfect data, right?
Correct.
Talking about data poisoning and all of that. How, if you don't have a clean data, how do you also address hallucination in, when you're trying to prompt for certain outputs?
So think of a computer. It has stuff in memory and it's crunching on that data in memory, right? 99% of what is in memory when a model is doing something is the model itself. And only 1% is your data. Most of what is coming out of the result isn't your data, it's what's already intrinsic in the model itself. That's why it's very resilient to poor data. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Love it, Joe. Thanks. Sound like a true developer simplifying this to API calls.